right, guys, so this has been a little bit of a big project because the car came in, a customer bought it already turbocharged, and he said, hey, fix whatever's wrong with it. Let's see if we can make it nicer, both performance-wise and aesthetically. So this thing was a bit of a sore sight when you first got it. Some of the charge piping was dented in, the fitment wasn't super great, so we redid some of the pipes and we got everything powder coated black too, so the piping looks really good. We'll start up here in the engine bay and you can kind of get an idea of the stuff that I'm talking about. So one of the big things with some of these single turbo setups that you have in the front, one thing we wanted to do was to ensure we had a brace supporting the weight of the turbo and the rest of the exhaust. So this particular car just had the up pipe essentially coming off the manifolds supporting this thing. So what we went ahead and did is installed and fabricated this brace that mounts to the top of the timing cover here and to the front here. So there's two areas, and then you can see it mounts right off the top of the center section here. So we've got a nice beefy brace. This will ensure that the setup won't crack any of the up pipes, the down pipes, keeps the strain off of all the exhaust, because the exhaust, as it heats and cools, it expands and contracts, and that'll minimize the whole paper clip effect of it tweaking and cracking. So stock exhaust manifolds, we did try to use an aftermarket set of exhaust manifolds or headers, but just wasn't possible with the way that this kit was designed. But we essentially redid all of the hot side piping. Both factory exhaust manifolds have V-bands on them now, and we redid everything. The fitment wasn't great. There was a little bit of damage done to the right-hand side exhaust manifold, so we actually had to cut one of the runners and weld a new runner tube off of it because it had, for lack of a better word, been modified incorrectly and not welded very well. So we fixed all that stuff, and the next thing is, let's see how it does. The big thing, of course, is what turbo is this? This is a Precision. It's a 6266. So we'll get a chance to see what this bad boy can do. Other thing we've done with everything else we've added is we added a blanket, a turbo blanket for the turbine housing. And because everything is here is just, there's a shit ton of heat right here, right? Pardon my French, but you've got plastic valve covers, you have the hood insulation. Take a look at this. This is, before. You can see how hot and toasty it gets. So this thing definitely needed some thermal heat management. So we have a turbo blanket. We added some fire sleeve over our right-hand side MAF sensor, help protect that. And then it had the fuel line running across over here. And yes, it had a fire sleeve on it. It just didn't look good. And running it right here, a few inches off the turbine housing wasn't ideal. So we made a new line and just ran it around the backside into the front into our CJ adapter that we've got here. So clean things up over here. We're gonna do ECU controlled boost. So we added our boost solenoid kit to it. And yeah, so everything's cleaned up. We did add a return fuel system, did the CJ parts, single pump, billet hat, and we're ready to put it on the dyno next. So let's take a look underneath so you can kind of see the level of fabrication quality that went into this thing, because it's way nicer than it was before. So let's get it up in the air. All right, so we're underneath this bad boy, and you can't see all of it, but you can see a decent amount. So off our left-hand side exhaust manifold, we've got a nice little V-band set up, routed right through here, tucked up so that it's not too low. And then we route it up into a merge, just like a Y, coming off the right-hand side exhaust manifold, coming through, and then this is what's feeding exhaust gases to that Precision turbo, okay? So from there, we also have our wastegate set up. It's a single, and the other bitchin' thing that we did is this was just vented to atmosphere. I like the car to be quiet, and I know this customer does, so what we did is we recirculated back into our main exhaust. So we've got this all pretty modular, and thankfully if you need to work on it, we kept that in mind. If you need to change the transmission fluid, change your clutch, this stuff comes out pretty easily, so you don't have to fight with it. And then again, we've got, our downpipe that comes off of here that we wrapped and into our Gessie cat. And then from here, we took the Infiniti catback. Customer wanted the Infiniti catback, and then we merged it into the dual little Y setup here, right? For our Y going into an Infiniti setup. So overall, really nice, really cleanly done, and excited to hear what it's going to sound like at wide open throttle on the dyno. So yeah, there you have it, folks. So a lot of fabrication time, you know, you can tell the welds are really nice. Everything's done and thought out really nicely. So it's really tight, you know, stuffing a bunch of the exhaust on that one side. So that's the one downside with a single turbo setup, is how much space you have, but got it done, and let's get it on the dyno next. Guys, so with our black single turbo Q60 on grams, this is where we ended up, basically maxing out the amount of duty cycle on our boost controller setup. There's a few things we can do. Adjusting the wastegate spring, replacing those really is what we need to do, and also increasing the turbine size. Because it's a single turbo and you got 6 cylinders pumping through on one housing, sometimes you get into a restriction with trying to get all 6 cylinders worth out of that turbine flow. So you end up, you know, losing a little bit of top end power. Ultimately, a different turbo would be ideal. This thing did fairly well, you know, with response, but of course we are still trying to limit the torque, and on this one, especially longevity wise. So 91 octane, we're about 455 wheel, 421 torque, 10 pounds of boost. You can see that, you know, certain setups do a little bit better than others on 91, but nonetheless, this is good power. 91 octane, you know, certain setups we can make over 500, but 2 pounds of boost more on 85, we're about almost 560 wheel. So Graham and I have talked about in the near future, probably later this year, 2024, about upgrading the turbo and doing a newer precision turbo, the next size up, with a slightly bigger housing, so we can get a little bit more power out of this bad boy safely.